There we go. Now it's lit up. Yeah, we're live. It's 109, 109, 109. Chrome wheel fuel injector 109. That's not how it goes. How's everybody doing? It's Friday. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you have not yet, please go watch the video of the install on the M90. This is me. We had run the M90 on lots of LS stuff, 4.8s and 5.3s and stuff on the engine dyno. This was me trying to put it on my Silverado and just test it on the chassis dyno just to see what was going on there. I kind of really wanted to test one of these blowers on a stock one, on a stock motor. And that's what mine was. Mine's just all, it's all stock. It has the cats and, everything is just stock. The only thing it has that's not stock is a muffler. And that's the way that it was when I bought it. But everything else is spot on. And so I wanted to try adding boost to that and just see how well it went. Because we want to see, guys that have 4.8s particularly, but also 5.3s. If you have stock ones and you want to, instead of putting a cam in it or something and you want to add boost to it, you can do that. And using this combination, we run to have it fit under the hood. It'd be high. We could have put a high ram on it because we tested it with the hood open anyway. But in this configuration, we ran it with the low ram and then put the Super Richie adapter plate that Tom Demuse did, and then put the M90 on it. And I actually this time put an M90, the early Gen 3 blower on it. There's more than enough flow to support the stock motor because we already know that it had made nearly 500 horsepower on a cammed version of that motor on the engine dyno. Only belt slippage kept us from making more than 500. And so on a stock motor, it was not going to have trouble supporting that kind of power level, especially because we started off with a 2.6-inch pulley. We could have tried other pulleys, but with that 2.6 pulley, this thing made about 7.5 pounds on the engine dyno, or on the chassis dyno rather, and did a similar thing on the engine dyno. So it was doing what it was supposed to do in terms of supplying the airflow. On this combination, I ran the stock truck throttle body. You saw in the video, if you take a look, it has a big air inlet going into the factory mass air meter from the stock throttle body. The stock throttle body, I used an adapter to go to the elbow that goes into the factory opening. We just used a small adapter plate to go from the, with elbows on it to go. And everything was 3.5 going in. And then the opening inside the factory blower is less than 3 inches. So of all of those things, the restriction really is going to be the blower itself. None of the inlet stuff is a restriction. Even the factory truck throttle body is bigger than the opening is going into the blower. So again, that's the limitation there. In fact, even though I tried to, and I didn't put this in the video, only the live feed guys get to hear this cool stuff. If you saw in the video, I used to make my quick 90-degree turn to get the throttle body coming forward because the opening in the blower is in the back against the firewall, essentially. So you have to have a really quick 90-degree there. And so what I did was join two silicone couplers together. The problem is the same thing happened there that happened on the engine dyno is when you're idling and there's lots of vacuum, because I have the throttle body essentially remote mounted. So all of the area between the throttle body and the blower, that's just lots of vacuum. And what it does is wants to collapse those silicone couplers. Now, what I did to try to minimize that, or even I was hoping eliminate that, is when I put the couplers together, I used, hey, doggy, hello, baby. I used tubing and shoved the tubing in to where it was almost touching into the couplers. So it gave very little room of unsupported coupler, let's say. But the problem was there was enough unsupported coupler and it would suck the thing in. It would only do that at idle because when you go to wide open throttle, there's little or no vacuum there. There would only be vacuum there if the throttle body or any of the inlet system was a restriction. And as I said, if we were going to measure vacuum somewhere, it would be between the rotors and the small opening in the blower. So all the other area, as soon as we'd go to wide open throttle, the sucked in portion of the silicone coupler would just expand back out and go, hey, look, there's no more vacuum here. I'm not being sucked in. Everything's good. And then that's what happened. We did make runs on it. I wanted to hook this up. Like I said, we ran through the factory mass air meter and all of that worked good. Ish was doing the tune on it. We ran a 2-bar map sensor. Basically what happens when you do that is you're just splitting the available adjustability in the tune in half, the resolution, as it were. And then he was just able to tune it. That, like I said, 7 pounds. We were not even at 1 bar. We were only at half bar, so 150 kPa or so. But he was able to tune it. The airfield was, spot on. It was like 11.5 or whatever. And then we tried various timing levels to see if there was a problem with that. And we got up as high as 18 or 19 degrees of timing, I think, at the top. So all of that was on. But as you noticed in the video, it seemed like there was one cylinder was down. We did our cylinder test, and that one wasn't working. Number 7 wasn't working for some reason after we added the blower. And I don't understand why. As I said, if you take a look at the blower video, you'll see we tested everything that I could think of in that cylinder to figure. I know. Don't stop petting you, right? We tested everything that I could think of in that cylinder. The only thing that I didn't test is I didn't replace the coil pack. And the other bit of information, I mean, they did test it. The coil was firing, so they could see that. But we don't know if, and we didn't see a really high peak or torque number. We don't know if the coil could be, going away under boost. Maybe that's possible. So we could try. That's one thing I didn't try. I just wanted to take that coil pack off and put another coil pack on. We did go through everything else. We tried different plugs. We tried different injectors. We did Noid lights on it. We did a compression test. We looked physically, took the blower off and looked in to make sure the port something wasn't restricting it. We tried all of that stuff. And the two things right now that I'm wondering about is, one, is that coil maybe going bad under boost, or is the and we tried different we normally bring the plug gap down. We tried that. We tried doing that stuff but again, we're not making a whole bunch of power. So it's not like we're blowing the spark plug out because blowing the spark energy out because we are making too much power. That's just not it. We weren't anywhere near that. We were only I think we're at 265 or something like that at the tires. I even tried, we were wondering about, maybe these cats were getting clogged because whoever welded these cats on didn't do a very good job. In fact, I'd already taken them in once to a muffler shop to have them fix the leaks that whoever did. They looked like they welded them with old coat hangers and stuff. But so we were wondering, hey, maybe the cats are getting clogged. So I dropped the exhaust. We did pick up power I just dropped the exhaust and we ran it just with the stock exhaust manifolds blowing into nothing, just blowing into the ground. And it did pick up power doing that, but not very much. I mean, it picked up what you'd expect from dropping the cats in the exhaust on almost any kind of combination. It didn't bring us back up to where I thought it would be. What I thought is I had run this truck before years ago, or a few years ago anyway, on this chassis dyno, and it made like 240 or 250 or something at the tire. And so it was right kind of where I thought a stock 5.3 with everything bone stock should be, kind of right where it should be. And so I figured with this blower doing what it's supposed to be doing with 91 octane and a 91 octane timing level, I kind of thought we would be adding like 100 horsepower and then more than 100 foot-pounds of torque. So I kind of thought we'd be in the 350 range. We're not there. So it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So like I said, I think it's down a hole, but I still haven't been able to figure out why. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know if you think that, or just give you some other ideas. We had a lot of guys working on this. I'm fairly familiar with LSs. I'm fairly familiar with motors. I know how they operate, and I'm fairly good at diagnosing this stuff. I wasn't the only one looking at this. I went through all the stuff that I thought was, that I should try. And every time we tried something, I thought, oh, this is definitely going to be it. And then it wasn't. Ish was there and Eric was there. And, we had some pretty sharp guys on this trying to figure the thing out. And I haven't got it. Again, it could also be that now that this motor, maybe it's way down on power stock. Maybe that cylinder's not, it had a good cranking compression. It had, I think 155 or 160 pounds of cranking compression, which is what I thought a stock, where I thought a stock one should be at. I should have done another one to kind of compare it to, but the motor runs even, it gets good fuel mileage and stuff. I don't think that the motor's down, but we'll know when we test it. We'll test it again and we'll figure out, hey, look, this is what it's doing. Hopefully it's still in the 240 to 250 range like it should be. And we'll know going from there. And then we'll take another shot at this. I wanted to change some things on it anyway from the way that it was configured when we tested it, just because I want it run in a way that the thing can be driven around. This way it couldn't have been driven around. I couldn't have closed the hood and stuff. But I'm making a different inlet and stuff for it to make it so that it can now, when it goes together. I also have the 255 pump. In fact, it might be here already. Might have been delivered. I'll put the 255 pump in it. We don't have to use that separate fuel system that Mark Sanchez hooked up, which is very, very cool. He uses that just to start other cars, and it works really good. So we should be able to fix all of that, I'm hoping, and then maybe actually drive this thing around when it, when it has boost, which is good, because everything is better with boost. We'll see if you guys have any insight into this. Have you seen a guy with dual M90s on the LS? That's coming. Turbo Central. I saw that video. Your face ate the fuel rail. They probably don't taste very good, right? Whose Broncos in your video? I don't know. Was there one parked next to mine? That could be Troy's. Have you thought of mounting 2 of these blowers? That's already being done. Run with a base tune. I don't know what you mean by that. Trying to kill the new transmission. I don't think if a couple of dyno runs is probably going to hurt it. I hope not. They put the Holley high ram lid on other motors, 3.7 Ford V6 and the Honda V6. Maybe just try the blower on them. Yeah, I am going to try running blowers on other motors if that's what you're asking. You don't have a suggestion for a blower to hang upside down the valley of a 544 valve? Yeah, just do a 122. Gen 3 2-bar patch has additional tables for boost. Spark is good. What vehicle can you find M90s from? Would it be too much for 110 horsepower 4-cylinder to start with? No, that would be okay. It's just a matter of how fast you spin it. You could also do an M92, and those are also in the 3800s. They're just in the earlier 3800s. I took measurements in a M113K supercharger should fit a modular 5.4. M90s from 90s Thunderbirds and GM 3800s are at least capable of 300 flywheel. Well, so far we've made 600 with them, so we know that they're capable of more than that. If you're running 2-bar, that is a SD. I don't think the math works anymore. Leak down test to check the valve seal. All the same parts work NA. The only thing we changed was putting it back to NA. We just put it back to stock. So we put the stock injectors back in. But like I said, we had run those injectors and swapped injectors in cylinders, but we had run those exact injectors and that same blower on the dyno, and it worked perfect. Has anyone split a turbo to isolate the hot cold sides like Mercedes in their LMP cars? That sounds really expensive. That's why the OEMs do that and Formula One race teams or LMP race teams. Stock plugs have a massive gap. I could see weak coil not being able to jump it under boost. We change plugs. We change gap. Richard, can the dyno test low RPM poles? Yes, you can. You can run 1500 RPM if you wanted to load something down that low, but again, that's just not. It's not realistic. I have never been, like in my truck, I've never been at 1500 at wide open throttle, and I don't know who does that. Going to use the blower for my short runner intake. Do you need to worry about different than stock spark plugs for a 5.3 with a cam and 10 pounds of boost? You should at least bring the plug gap down, and I think I would go a colder heat range on that too. Most people use the NGK like a TR6 for that. You keep saying Gen 3 and Gen 4 M90. No, it's Gen 3 and Gen 5 M90. I don't know about a Gen 4 one. Richard, one day, can you do back-to-back comparisons of truck manifolds versus short runner intake manifolds? You mean like the 15 or 30 or 100 videos that are already up comparing that? Have you tested a similar size screw Whipple head to head against a near peer Eaton? So maybe a twin screw blower makes more power than a roots blower does. Was it floating the valves? Not at 3,500. It's not floating the valves. I wouldn't think the coil pack would care about boost. Or am I missing something? The coil itself might care about boost. It may not have the spark energy to do that if the coil is getting bad. I personally haven't seen that. Usually the coil works or the coil doesn't. I haven't seen them get weaker, but it is possible. M90 two-wheel drive S10 4.3 would be good. Yep. My map reading engine was off 155, so it's definitely off. Yeah, it's Turbo Sentra. Yeah, it needs to read 100 kPa with just the key on and the engine off. That needs this so that'll show you that you're starting at in fact, we do that a lot of times, test a whole bunch of map sensors, because the map sensor doesn't really have it doesn't tell us whether it's a 1 bar, 2 bar. We just physically write that on there. So we go through a whole bunch of them and just check them and see where it puts the deal at. I just watched your video on carb tuning. I have an 1850 in my dually. I also had to put heavier diaphragm spring in it to keep the secondaries from opening too soon. You put a heavier than, usually those carbs, when they come from the factory, come with the heaviest spring in it. I've never seen somebody go heavier than that. Normally we have to put lighter ones in it so it opens up sooner. Was Ish 100% happy with the digital electronic bits? Yeah, he was happy with the tuning part of it. Truck coils definitely get weaker. I got a miss when it rains and goes away when it's not running. I like AC Delco plugs because they're easy to decode and they're a good plug. Okay. I'm about to check piston valve and final assembly. There you go. Lots of spam in the regular Richard Holder videos from provocative, most likely dudes accounts. I don't see in the comments, I don't see lots of spam. Does it have any lifter noise? No, not really. I mean, it has noise when you first start it up. I don't know if it's net lifter noise or piston slap, but I expect that from something that has 330,000 miles on it. Got a sniper entrance kit. Kit says it's limited to 125 max with a soft plume fogger nozzle. Has a 10-pound bottle for supply. Could I run a second fogger nozzle later on to add more nitrous? You have the flow rate of that is not really a nozzle size thing. I think it's probably the solenoid. Never run low RPM. No, I've never been at wide open throttle at 1500 RPM. Never. Also, when wheeling in high range, I spent a lot of time in the 1200 to 2200. 2200 might be more realistic for wide open throttle, but not 1200. 12, like at park throttle stuff, I could see driving around at even 1200. It would only be manual transmission stuff. But again, I don't understand the need for off idle wide open throttle power numbers. That's not an area where you're at. So upgrade the solenoids to run more nitrous. Yeah, a lot of times the nitrous flow rate is a function of several things. One, obviously, the first thing is whatever's coming out of the bottle. So the size of the whatever fitting you have on the bottle, the line, then the solenoid, and then also the line coming from the solenoid could ultimately be limiting the jetting that you get, and then whatever's happening after the jet. So whatever the plate is, maybe the flow orifice of the plate or the bars, all of those things can be limiting. A lot of times cheaper, lesser expensive, affordable nitrous kits, they run small solenoids in it. So when the solenoid opens up, it only has a given flow orifice. And so they save the big flow orifice for the bigger, more expensive kits. If you tune for wide open throttle at 1500, it can be fine. Not too stressful on the engine with retarded timing. No point to it in any modern gas engine I could think of. Yeah, people, you can want whatever you want, and I, like I said, I respect that. You do what you think is right. I'm not going to run engines at 1500 RPM at wide open throttle on the engine dyno. That's for me, that's not a realistic RPM range. If you tune for wide open throttle at 1500, yeah, these are like diesel RPM numbers. So we can have a poll. Who thinks the probability Who thinks the problem with the M90 Silverado is the old tired 5.3 liter motor? Do you think it's just the old motor? Or do we think it's, I want to try both of those. I want to run it on, and we tried to do that, but I didn't, there's a lot of things going on that prohibited that from happening before I had to leave. So, but when I put it all back together and drove it, it drives fine. Got the same fuel mileage. All that seems like it's working. I'm putting a Trinity on my turbo built 5.3. How much of a turd will it be down low? Street track manual trans and rev limiter is 7,800. Well, you've seen tests. A short runner manifold is definitely going to lose power compared to a long runner manifold. If you're wanting to spend power at the other far end of the RPM range, from 5,000 or 6,000 to 7,800, that's okay. But you are going to lose power down low. The short runner manifolds always do that. There's no way around that. I've thought about mile per gallon builds and the big gas engines before, little turbos, excessively long gearing. I always figure I would be no further ahead than running a 1.5 liter engine at 3,500, but it's a more fun idea. I would like to see that. I don't know that Chad and I talked about this years ago when he was taking the motor out of his Suburban, that 6 liter, that iron-headed 6 liter, to let me use it for the Big Bang thing. And we were talking about putting a 4.8 in there with a turbo so that you could use that to get fuel mileage. One thing I know is that when you're cruising down the road and you're not in boost and you're only using, let's say, I don't know, let's say it's 30 horsepower or whatever, or 30 foot-pounds, whatever the number is, you're cruising down the road and you're, at 14.7 to 1 air fuel. If you're doing that in a 4.8, I think your mileage is going to be better than doing the same thing on a bigger motor, on a 6.0 or a 454 or something else. I think your fuel mileage would be better on a smaller motor. It has less friction. I think your fuel mileage would be better. What I don't know is if you're going into boost more with the smaller motor, going up grades and stuff, because let's face it, the world is not flat. Just as much as the flat earthers want that to be the case, it's not flat, and it's not flat driving around. There are hills and grades and all kinds of stuff. So when you're going into boost with a 4.8, you're running richer than you would on and maybe not. It depends on, I don't know how the tuning is done on the bigger motors when you're going up a grade. Maybe you're also running in the 11s that way. But if you're optimized and you weren't doing that, the bigger motor should be at least a full air fuel point leaner while going up these grades than a turbo LS would be, a turbo smaller motor would be, because you'd definitely be in the 11s. So would it use more fuel doing that? Because that's the thing. You'd actually have to go out and test that to find out and make sure that that's which one of those is happening. A M90 is a 1.5 liter. Did the 1850 come with a yellow spring? Maybe the spring kit you can buy comes with much heavier springs. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that Steve said that was the one that was in there was the heaviest spring, but I could be wrong about that. We put the lightest spring which I think was a white spring. With a heavy vehicle like my dually, it gets lugged down so much that the secondaries don't open enough to pull gas through the boosters with a light spring in it. It gets lugged down so much that the secondaries don't open enough to pull gas through the boosters with a light spring on it. Okay. Could it be weak valve springs? I don't know. The motor, when it's NA, the motor revs out to, out to the power peak with no problem. Is there a balance of air fuel ratio that is safe for a cammed NA and make the most power on pump gas and fuel mileage? Well, your fuel mileage and power are going to be at different throttle angles. So your power is going to be wide open throttle. So your air fuel at wide open throttle is going to be different than your part throttle cruise fuel mileage, unless you're specifically concerned about your fuel mileage under wide open throttle, which nobody is. Did you take out the fuel rails when you put the blower on the 5.3? Yeah, if you watch the video, we put a Holley low ram with the low ram fuel rails so that the blower and adapter plate would fit on there. Just occurred to me you're referring to wide open throttle. I agree with you. Off idle, not wide open throttle. Wide open throttle probably in the 1800 to 2500 range. Yeah, that's what I was saying. You're not at 1200 RPM. You're never at wide open throttle at 1200 RPM. It just doesn't make any sense. You have a pretty stout aluminum 5.3 that should bolt right into the truck. Yeah, but I'm not convinced that there's something wrong with the one that's here. The Top Gear guys ran an M3 behind a Prius on the track and compared mile per gallon. If you're drafting, you can definitely get better fuel mileage because you don't have the aero load against the car. So if you're doing that, that's a good way. That's like guys that are doing eco moding, if you can draft behind a big truck, you can let the truck push all the air out of the way, but you have to be close enough to where the air that doesn't wrap back around and push on you. You have to be right next to the other car, basically. In town, my truck's gearing causes me to drive at 1500 RPM. I'm not saying people don't drive at 1500 RPM, but when are you at wide open throttle at 1500 RPM? If you have a motor that runs to 6000 or 6500 RPM and you're at wide open throttle at 1500 RPM, you need to change to a different gear. You would get better acceleration and better performance if you were in a different gear. Richard, can you use a dyno to simulate different stall converters? Nope. That can't be done that I know of. Is the blower drive shaft turning the rotors? I have snap one on my 471. The blower's making boost. The blower's making 7.5 pounds. I know you don't mess with transmissions much, but do you have a recommendation for 700 horsepower 5.3 and a Gen 3 Camaro? Are you looking at an automatic or a manual transmission, Taylor? The difference between running a 4.8 and a 6.0 is almost nothing. 1 gallon over an 8-hour period, so a quarter of a mile per gallon. I'm gonna look up the EPA ratings for those. I'm pretty sure a 4.8 gets better fuel mileage. couple years ago, you did a trivia giveaway for your birthday. Can we donate stuff to that? And would you do something similar again? It was a lot of fun. My birthday is coming up. My coils worked NA just fine, but would not work under boost. My old coils got weak. Okay, cool. I've had coils stop firing under boost, but usually it's under a fairly high horsepower deal, and we're just like making NA power, so you would think that they would work. BS show again. You would be better served to be in a different gear, because I guarantee you your 180 horsepower 3.9 liter is not making peak torque at 1200 RPM. You would be better served to be in a different gear. Sorry for all the questions, but do you believe using some of these EFI blowers as wet pull-through carbureted situations would hurt anything? On the M90 stuff that I did with a carburetor, I would not recommend using those blowers for a carburetor. More because the fuel gets puddled up in a lot of areas. I don't know about washing down. The other concern would be washing the grease out of the bearings. I've not seen anybody do I've never seen a long-term test to see how long that would take, or if it's even happening once the fuel goes into the blower. I don't know that that's really a concern. I just wouldn't do it with that M90 blower. I mean, you may take it to duct tape drags or anything that where you want to make passes with it. And for a carbureted deal, you just do that anyway. I don't know that that would be my drive around thing, though. Yeah, turbocentric. That is diesel territory. And I like those turbocharged and supercharged two-stroke diesels. Those things are cool. I remember the first time somebody told me that that was the case. I'm like, wait, hang on a second. It is a turbo and a supercharger, and it's a diesel, and it's a two-stroke. Like, it has all the things. Have you ever run a TorqueStorm supercharger? Yeah, I have lots of videos up on TorqueStorm stuff. Is it totally wrong to install a Deutschwerks or Aeromotive fuel regulator on a truck-style returnless fuel rail system under the truck, and then having the return there instead of in the it's also doing that at the pump, you realize, right? A returnless system has a return on it. It's just bleeding out in the fuel tank. So it's already doing that. I don't know why you would want to have an intermediate one now doing it. I can understand why you'd want to convert the whole thing away from it. But returnless stuff works pretty well. Gotta go. Will you be on tonight? I don't think so. Does an M90 112 122 have a built-in burp valve? I don't know what a burp valve is. I know what a bypass valve is, and it has one of those. Also, anemic power. Maybe the motor is just too tired. Yeah, that's one of the possibilities that we talked about. Are there any positive displacement blowers besides the Roots and the Eaton and the Twin Screw? The Whipple also is a positive displacement. Lysol makes a positive displacement. I don't know if the Latham, I don't know if the axial flow one is considered a positive displacement. Other people have made them too. B&M, Wyand, the Detroit ones. There's a few of them. Rail pressure is 67 with the Corvette regulator. The blow-off valve isn't an anti-backfire valve, though. The blow-off valve is, unless you mean a burst valve. A burst valve is something different that they had on other blower stuff. If the thing would backfire, it let that go off, and you see those on carb spacers and stuff too. Guys have those for nitrous. They have those burst valves that, like Wilson sells those. The blowers don't have those. They have a bypass valve which allows pressurized air to recirculate back into the blower under cruise. So it opens up under vacuum conditions. Are you thinking the L33 is tired? Well, we're not talking about the L33 right now. We're talking about the one that's in my truck, which is an LM7. The L33 is blowing smoke out of the exhaust when we run it at wide open throttle. So I'm thinking that the rings are not sealing exactly like they should be. But I don't know. The coils are original, yeah. But I don't know how much power on the L33 that's hurting though. Trans suggestion for an auto 5.3, and well, if you're making that kind of power, you're going to have to look at 4L ADE stuff, I think. The Whipple is a twin screw, yeah, but that's still a positive displacement blower. When building a turbo kit, how crucial is 90-degree turn going to the turbo? It's not critical at all. Are you selling the M90 adapters? Yes, they're available through Demuse Engineering right now. Brett LaSalle's Coyote just made 2,900. That's a lot. Just wanted to add a little fun power to my 89 Dodge Ram 50s mini carbureted 2.6 4-cylinder. I was trying to keep it cheap and carbureted. Guys are running carbureted stuff through those little AMR blowers, but that's like 150 horsepower blower. I don't know how much power that motor makes, but if it's 100, you could get it to possibly 150. Does the L33 have ring gap? It does not right now. Well, it has whatever stock is. Would the M90 work better on a 4.8? I don't know what you mean by better. I don't know if Demuse Engineering has a website. So if you want to see these things offered so that they're more readily available, we can make that happen. Put the aluminum block in the Silverado. Could valve springs be too tired? I don't see. We've never had that issue with valve springs before. What did the M90 come on? Are they hard to get or are they expensive? The M90s came on 3,800 V6s, GMs, in Grand Prix and Buick Regals and lots of different things from the mid 90s to the mid to late 2000s. So there's a lot of them available out there. VW G ladder, yeah, different. A G ladder is positive displacement. I thought it was a scroll supercharger, yeah, and I didn't think that was the same thing. How much would an 03, 06 mini blower? Are you talking about the BMW mini blower? The Mini Cooper one? That's an M62, I think, right? Found an M90 for 200. Yeah, they're available at wrecking yards. There's a lot of them. There's no broken valve springs. We looked at the valve springs. Oh, the minis have M45s? Okay. I think that they're doing it with I don't remember if it was SET or HP tuners. It's one of those. Yeah, they have them on Buicks. Definitely the Buick Regals. What are the other full-size cars that they have them on? Bonnevilles and stuff. It's raining. Hello, Bruno. What are you doing? Huh? Hello, Brady. Come on up. Come here. Come on up and say hi. Hello. I know. Who's that good looking guy? I know who's that good looking guy there, huh? Who is that? Who's that? Who do you see? Who is that? That's you. Huh? That's you. Come on up, Brady. Come on. Hello, there's Brady. Hello. What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? Say hello. Say hello. I know. Okay. You want more attention? Okay. Hello. Who's that? Where's Milo? Go get Milo. What's Milo doing? Go get Milo. Attack. The tail's gonna break something. It is. They're damaging to stuff that's sitting around, plants and things like that. Thunderbird Super Coupe. Yeah, those are much harder to find. You don't see too many of those. If you're using too light of a secondary diaphragm spring, a wide open throttle, the secondary is open just enough to let air in, but not pull fuel. If that's the case, you obviously get a very lean mixture. Okay. Well, we mechanically open them a lot of times, and that works good. Yep, they're Goldens, they're puppies. They're just now a year old, I think. Milo doesn't come up the stairs, but he did get to ride in the truck the other day. He loves that. I just have to lift him up. Wine stem breakers. They knock over all kinds of stuff. Super Coupe, 30,000 miles on it. Nice. That's a good one. I like the way those looked. I always envied the aero of the Super Coupes and the Turbo Coupes compared to my notchback Mustang, because I was really only concerned with top speed stuff, and I definitely picked the wrong car for that. But the Mustang was awesome, and I ran it at Silver State for 12 years. Silver Labs, I like those too. I on my Instagram thing is primarily cars and dogs. Were the TRD M90s, were they Tacomas? I don't know. Does anybody know? I'm thinking that they were 62s, but they might have been bigger ones. Are you picking up false knock? We're not seeing that. There was no Ish wasn't seeing knock, and we could see that the timing was staying what it was commanded. Curious if the little bit smaller displacement on a 4.8 makes a difference. Makes a 4 and snakes too, yeah. Although I don't have a lot of what are you doing? I know somebody's there. I don't have a lot of snake stuff on my Instagram feed. Oh, so Andy, you have to deal with the secondary issue? Yeah. So not making any power. Beagle Power S10. What is that? Hang on a second, guys. I'll be right back. Hey, don't let them out. Don't let them out. Okay, come on in. I'm on the computer. Down. Okay, I'm back. And I'm back. They're in ZX, good shape for top speed. A 300 is, yeah, they have a pointy nose, so they're pretty good. Torque converter swap is next. Will it make more boost on a 4.8? The less powerful the NA combination, the more boost the blower will make. But the downside to that is when you go up in boost, like if you run the M90 with the same pulley on a stock 4.8 and running on a stock 5.3, the boost will likely be lower on the 5.3, but it's going to make more power. Even though the other one has more boost, but it should make more power with more boost. That's not how it works. Plug gap, nope, it's not a plug gap situation. We changed plugs, we changed gaps, we did all that. And again, it's only making like a little more than NA power. My bet on the 5.3 is a wonky injector. No, nothing wrong with injectors. Injectors were run on the motor, on the engine dyno, work perfectly. We took all the injectors, we swapped injectors in that cylinder, and it was still that cylinder. And then I took all the injectors out and put them on the flow machine and flowed them all. The injectors all flow perfectly, and they all have the same impedance. So we did that check. Didn't you have a video of clearing out bunkers on a military base from snakes a while back? Not a military base. I've never done that. I have done a lot of, catching snakes. Silversmith Labs near Houston, if everyone wants a quality silver or charcoal. Yeah, it's not like I said, we checked. I thought I checked. Well, I checked everything, I think, except for the coil. High resistance in the injector harness. I don't know. When we plug the harness back into the stock injectors, they work fine. And the other ones seem to be working. All the other ones seem to be firing. Opinion on Skog and Dickey cams, 220, 222. I've run a cam like that, but it wasn't from Skog and Dickey, and it will work fine. There's no boost leak in the blower because we have 7.5 pounds. Let me go. Go. Problem's not fuel pressure related. No, the fuel pressure is staying constant. When if there's something wrong with the blower causing serious drag under stress or boost robbing power. The blower was just run. That's the same blower that I ran on the day before. We ran it on the 5.3 on the L33 on the engine dyno. And it, like I said, we were up near 500 horsepower. What duty cycle the injectors are, I don't know. I'd have to look at Ish. I'd have to ask him. What did I miss earlier today? You ran the M90 on the tired 5.3. We ran it on the one that's in my truck. So that video's up. And the electric kick down behind the pedal. The housing seems shorter for the V6 on a V8. Do you think it could be causing strange air fuel distribution? No. Like I said, we've run these blowers on this motor, on this kind of motor, 4.8s and 5.3s. Now we have a lot of runs. I can't tell you how many because you're trying to guess how many runs I've made on the dyno, so you win a camshaft. And by the way, as a reminder, guess how many runs we have on the aluminum 5.3, not the one that's in the truck, because I don't have that in the truck, but the one we're running on the engine dyno that I got from the wrecking yard years ago. How many runs does it have on it right now? After almost 2 years of dyno testing, how many pulls have we made on that? I'm guessing it's valves or coil. Tuning it, maybe limited by a table somewhere. Check the edit files for the virtual torque. Richard, did you ever get the oiling figured out on my 5.3? Yeah, I'm sure the one in my truck needs a pump. We'd be doing happy hour specials again. Yes, we will. That's better during the warmer months. How many pulls did it have in it when it was original? I didn't ever check the mileage on that. I should have. It would have been interesting to see that way. And also, I want to, and I'll go back and look at this when we give away this thing this weekend. I want to go back and look and see how many runs there are at 7,600. remove the MAF and run speed density, blower blades, 3 years as a dyno pig. That has to be around 275 or 300. It's not 3, it's only 2 years. Is there anything in your setup that could be setting off the knock sensor, causing ignition time to be pulled? I haven't seen the video. I'd have to ask Ish about that. I think when he's seeing the timing, that the timing number is the final timing number, but I need to ask him about that. And again, we tried adding timing to see if that would help things, and it didn't really do. Like we didn't go, oh, all of a sudden that's like 50 more horsepower. It didn't really do that. Ring lands or skirts dragging. If there was a mechanical problem like that, you'd think. I mean, this thing does use oil because as all LSs do, the intake manifold really is full of oil. If you turned it upside down, oil drains out of it, and that's pretty normal for all these wrecking yard motors, which essentially is what mine is. It just hasn't been to the wrecking yard yet. How long do you suggest breaking oil? We would normally run them for 500 miles. Dumb question. Is there any way you could run a motor with a trans to show power loss? No, but I've run the motor on the engine dyno and then on the chassis dyno to show you what the difference is. But it's more than just the transmission. What year's your truck? I have the same truck. The difference in our truck is yours is red, mine's black. Same body style. I have an LM753. Mine's a 2002. On your bypass open test, would making 7 pounds, but with full parasitic loss. I'd have to look back and see. I don't know what you're asking about for opening the bypass. The bypass doesn't show the parasitic loss associated with driving the blower. We know what that is because we've run these M90 blowers on the blower dyno, and I could look up that data and find out what it is. Had an issue way back. Truck wouldn't make any power. Tried everything. It wasn't getting any codes. It was a bad math. But even the math wasn't showing any codes. Were you running PCV during the dyno runs? No, we had that. That was basically vented. My 428 was dragging the lands bad. It certainly caused power loss and then started blowing oil. Oh, I haven't even looked at our poll yet. Who thinks the problem with the M90 Silverado is the old tired 5.3 liter motor? 6 2/3 saying no. That's good. I like that. Maybe the oil sippers do a ring cleaning with, just put some stuff through it. Tony just dropped a video about the Turbo Lincoln. I saw it on Instagram. Wish I could pick your brain in person. Sometimes your answers bring up more questions. That's what doing stuff on the dyno does. I watched Matt rip turbo LS engines with oil smoke blowing everywhere, 500 plus horsepower, so I doubt it's aware. I don't think it's that either. And yeah, we've run Smoky Joes and it still makes power. Could the exhaust lifter be collapsing a little bit, causing exhaust to hang in the cylinder and choking it back? I don't know. Dying to see some content on V12 Fox. Could the injector just not be up to the task on that one cylinder? Again, it's an 80-pound injector, so it's got more than enough flow, and it just ran the day before, so I don't think that's it. No trouble codes. No, it does have one now after putting it back together and driving it home. But I honestly think when I take that code, we took the factory O2 sensors out, which Ish turned off, but we took those out and to plug in the O2 sensor for the dyno. And I think it probably is that. We also dropped the exhaust completely and ran it that way. Aaron wants to know if an 05 Yukon Denali with a 6-liter would be an LQ4 or an LQ9. You should go online and look that up. You'll be able to find that. What was the oil pressure during RPM? The oil pressure is rising during RPM, so that's not a problem. Are you running the factory exhaust? We ran the factory exhaust through all of the testing, and then actually dropped the exhaust and only ran through the stock exhaust manifolds with nothing after that. We tried that, and that did pick up a little bit of power, but not a lot. So it's not a clogged cat or anything. Cylinder 7 is the last one in line for oiling. Okay, Turbo Central, let me know what happens after you recalibrate that. Let me know that you got it right. We like to hear success stories. my blower Silverado is not a success story yet, but it will be. If you're running cats and have been burning oil, you could simply be plugged and cannot flow. Yeah, but did you hear the comments about just dropping the exhaust? We dropped the exhaust. We picked up a little bit of power, but that's not it. And they're not glowing red hot when we're running it. And we can feel exhaust coming out the tailpipe when they're running. I've had cars with clogged cats before, and it's it sounds terrible, and there's almost no exhaust flow. This is a factory ECU. Yep. I was hoping when we dropped the exhaust that it would pick up like 80 or 90 horsepower. I'm like, oh, okay, it has clogged cats, which is a good thing because then I could, put cats on it, and it should help even when the thing is NA. Anything's better than a flying fuel rail. Exactly. The thing I hate I hate swapping injectors because they always want to be in there permanently. When you pull them out, you always, there's always a knuckle buster or an elbow, and then there's always fuel in the rail. No matter, I could let a fuel rail sit open for 1,000 years, and then when I take some other injector out, there's going to be fuel, and it's going to spill on me. It doesn't come out until I pull the injector out and have it splash all over me. My O2 is at 314,000, still in the original cats. Has 2 blower blade screws, not pushing air properly. No, it's making boost. It's making 7.5 pounds, so the blower is doing what it's supposed to do. What would you suggest for a break-in process for a new engine? It has hydraulic roller lifters. I'm not worried about that. Going to be on a run stand. You can't really load it on a run stand, and you should, to properly break the rings in, they should be run at different engine speeds and different loads is how we do it. That's why driving it around is really good because you have varying speeds and varying loads. But you could, I guess, run it on a stand and just vary the RPM. Stuck injectors really make the primaries glow. Yeah, I've had a clogged injector on the Civic. It did that. Is it possible the truck is running in limp mode map without throwing a code? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. We'll know more if we run it NA. Cuts down a big hill with the ride in low gear or second, so it's engine braking to brake in rings. Okay, I've never heard that before. On the when we're on the engine dyno, we vary the load from, I don't know, 30 or 40 foot-pounds up to somewhere near 100 foot-pounds. And we cycle it from like 22 or 2300 RPM up to 33 or 3400 RPM, and then the dyno just sweeps it between there by applying load, basically. So it's changing RPM and load both, and then it does how many ever cycles you want for however long you want to do that. I have Matthew. I have the stock LM7 in my truck. The L33 is something that we run on the engine dyno. That's an engine dyno meal only kind of thing. Okay, we're going to end our poll at 65% saying no. That's good. No, I didn't tune the stock computer. Ish is doing that at Westech. One more minute. The difference between an LM7 and an L33 is an L33 is all aluminum, so it's an aluminum block. It has higher compression. It has a slightly better camshaft, and it also has flat top pistons and 799 or 243 heads. You've seen the electric clutch pulley. Yeah, somebody mentioned that. I don't know if I've seen it though. Wow, shots fired, Admiral. People. Was the compression test higher on the dead cylinder than the others? I don't know. We only verified compression in that one cylinder. We just wanted to make sure that it wasn't dead. Jacob, you're probably going to get on S480 turbos, you're probably going to get T6s because that's probably what the housing that they come with. A lot of times you have to spend more money to get a T4 housing. T4s for 1500 horsepower would be fine for twin S480s because that's not anywhere near where their flow limit is. Northern, if you're, are you road racing this thing or what are you doing with it? I think a stock pan is terrible for any sort of track racing. The oiling system definitely should be considered. A good pan, a windage tray, all of that stuff would be better. How does nitrous increase oil pressure? Where did you hear that it did that? Or the valve springs weak. They're 300 and something thousand miles, but I've never had that issue with any of the junkyard motors. It's possible you had a boost leak. We have the boost logged for the whole run, and the boost is fine. And on that note, it is time to go. You guys all have a safe Friday. Make good choices out there. And if I don't see you tonight, I will see you later.